Call me to order. It's a matter of a public hearing with respect to the 2025 financial plan. The municipality of Oakland-Wawanesa would like to acknowledge and recognize we are operating on Treaty 1 and Treaty 2 lands, being the original territory of the Anishinaabe and the Dakota Nations and the homeland of the Métis Nation. First item, adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved that the agenda for the March 18, 2025 meeting be accepted as presented. Somebody move that. Councilor McDonald, second by Councilor Fisher. All in favor? Carried. Be resolved that the special meeting of council be recessed to allow council to hold a public hearing to receive representation from any person who wish to make them in respect to the 2025 provincial financial plan. Somebody move that. Councilor Hatch, second. Councilor McDonald. All in favor? Carried. So we will start off with your presentation.
We did. Right there. You shut off. That's why. You had a nap. There. It just takes a moment. Okay, 2025 public hearing. Our agenda is the purpose of the public hearing, assessment, tax levies, and special service levies, review of the 2025 budget, million for commercial levies, what you get for your tax dollars, and what are the next steps. Purpose of a public hearing. To inform the public about the financial situation and plan of the municipality. To assist the public to understand how their tax dollars are being spent. Provides an opportunity for public participation and input. Provides an understanding of the relationship between services and taxes and the difficult decisions that must be made by council to determine a balance between the two. The public hearing provides a general overview of the 2025 financial situation and plan. Assessment. Assessed values of all properties are determined by the provincial assessment branch. We pay $39,000 annually for this service. A property's assessment is an assessor's best estimate of the most probable selling price for a property based on April 1st, 2023 market values. Total municipal portion assessment, all properties for 2025 is $201 million to $271,050. Changes in total portion assessment from 2024 to 25, increase of 20 million, or just over $20 million, or 11.047%, attributed to reassessment and new developments. This diagram shows the assessment percentages by property class. So as you can see, railway is 0.128%, pipeline 14.234%, institutional 1.314%, others 3.822%, a residential owned condo co-op housing is 0.06%, residential is 30.46%, and farm is 49.982%. This pie chart shows portion assessment percentages by property class. As you can see, the residential is 36.831% and farm is 34.917%. Other 6.675%, railway 0.086%, pipeline 19.123%, institutional 2.296%, and residential owned co-op condo co-op housing 0.0726%. 2025 overall budget. 2025 total municipal budget is $3,243,262.65, which includes a number of capital projects that are funded from reserve. The amount to be raised by taxes is $2,342,713.31. This is an increase of $69,085.77, or 3.07%. General government services, which is on page 3 of the financial plan. This category includes legislative, general, administrative, made up of staff, office, legal, audit, assessment, and taxation, and other general government, comprised of elections, conventions, insurance, intergovernmental relations, and grants. The budget for this category is $635,994.22. That is a decrease of $42,006.16. Most of the decrease is related to computers and reduction in a position. Protective services, which is also on page 3. This includes police, fire, emergency measures, and other protection. The budget for this category is $152,657.74. This is a decrease of $7,675.17. Most of the reduction is in building and plumbing inspection. Transportation services, which is on page 3 and 4. This category includes roads and streets, staff, equipment repairs and maintenance, equipment insurance, shop and yard operations, and asset management. And road construction and maintenance, gravel crushing, trucking, road maintenance and reconstruction, sidewalks, ditches, bridges, etc. The budget for this category is $1,015,835.98. This is an increase of $63,828.32. This increase is mostly related to the rotary mower needing major repair and new tires on the loader. Environmental health services, which is on page 4. This includes garbage and waste collection, garbage collection and nuisance grounds, and other environmental health recycling. The budget for this is $147,585.37. This is an increase of $9,255.37. The increase includes carbon tax levy of $1,000. Oh, sorry.
Nice try.
Environmental developed services, which is also on page 4. This includes planning and zoning, community development. The budget is $6,000, and there is no change in this line item. Economic development services, which is also on, is on page 5. This includes destruction of pests, weed control, veterinary services, water sources and conservation, tourism, and staff appreciation. The budget for this is $32,280. This is a decrease of $19,754.63. This decrease is directly related to weed control, as some product was pre-brought last year. Recreation and cultural services, which is also on page 5. This includes community centers and halls, pools, rinks and arenas, parks and playgrounds, grants, and museums. The budget is $116,570. This is an increase of $3,230 as approved by the new special levy service. So special services levy. Fiscal services, which is also on page 5. This includes transfers to capital and utility. The budget is $463,956.34. This is an increase of $103,359.30. This includes transfers to capital for growth funding projects in the amount of $158,000. Revenues. This includes other revenue, taxes added, penalties, licenses, permits, sale of service, sale of goods, trailer park rentals, grazing leases, and returns from investments. Municipal operating grants, provincial operating grant, gas tax, and transfer from reserves. The budget is $900,983.89. This is an increase of $70,569.11 and is the result of additional provincial basket funding increases as well as grants applied for other funds. Capital budget. This includes capital projects or purchases planned for 2025, such as purchase of equipment and road projects. The budget is $2,545,304, which is funded by reserves and borrowing. Note, the capital budget includes a proposed utility debenture of $1,600,000. Utility budget. The utility budget is wholly funded by the utility. The budget is $497,904. This is an increase of $129,912.55, which includes funding from the Water Services Board towards the debenture project. This budget does not include any capital works that would require grant funding for commencement. What you get for your tax dollars: road maintenance and improvements, snow removal, spring culvert opening drainage, veterinary services, grass cutting, ditches, weed control, waste transfer stations, recycling, street lighting, fire and protective services, EMO flood services, emergency coordinator, 911 emergency services, planning and zoning, signage, consultants, legal, animal control, bylaw enforcement, insurance/liability coverage, community halls, centers and rinks, soccer, baseball fields, handyman services, pool and campground, library services, school bursaries and hospital grants, children and adult programs, and general grants. Mill rate. The mill rates 2025 are as follows, with 2024 comparisons in brackets. 9.894 is the general mill rate, compared to 10.514 was in 2024. This year's 0.260 is the mill rate for recreation against class 30 agricultural lands. Last year was 0.265. 0.419 is the mill rate for this year for recreation against all other classes of property, compared to 0.45 in 2024. 1.221 is the mill rate for this year against Wawanesa properties for the lagoon. 1.36 was 2024. 1.024 is the mill rate this year against Wawanesa properties for the ice plant. It was 1.095 last year. Per parcel charges. 2025 per parcel charges are as follows, with 2025 comparisons in brackets. $50 per parcel for recreation for Wawanesa properties that are residential with no dwelling units, which is the same as last year. $135 per parcel for recreation for all other Wawanesa properties, which is also the same as last year. $50 per parcel for waste recycling for all residential properties with no dwelling units, which is $25 was in 2024. $14.35 per parcel for waste recycling for class 30 agricultural land. 16.13 was in 2024. This year, $101.84 per parcel for waste recycling for all other class properties. 2024 was 98.31. Our next steps are conclude the public hearing, adopt the financial plan, and give first reading to the tax levy bylaw. Minor amendment on page 8 related to GIL and grazing lease prior to second and third reading of the tax levy bylaw. Get the information uploaded to the province for printing of the tax bills. Mail the tax bills with payment due by October 31st, 2025. And please note, payment options include online payments, e-transfers, postage checks, and cash. That's it.
Okay, now it is your turn. Public hearing, we heard from representations from public, so if you wish to say something, the presentation forward, please stand up, let us know what your name and your property, your address is, and for note for the record. Go ahead.
My name is Patricia Warburton and also Trent McCann representing Northeast 35819 West. I do have a couple questions and clarification needed. First of all, are we still practicing or making a practice of doing payouts for vacation times? Or are we adequately staffed now that we don't have to have somebody working through their vacation times?
Address that.
What I can say is that we always try to minimize the amount of overtime that there may be. The only time that we have typically paid out vacation time was when it was starting to get to the point where it was going to be a liability on the
Yes, that was last
municipality.
year
Yeah.
that we had that.
Yeah,
occurring,
it would
which
carry
we never
forward.
did get our answer back from that.
And I would state that under the proposed union agreement, there is a requirement that overtime be 50% banked and 50% paid out.
Okay. But a little bit more diligent in the timelines for people to take their holidays, correct? Because we
Yes.
know there's a lot of stress. Clarification is needed. Last year's budget for recreation services, just reading through the documents and just trying to get the right information. The 2024 budget for 113,340, and the actual was 953,533.20. Where did the extra money come from? Is that a grant? And is it the grant that's marked as $836,769 reported on line 8290 on page 5? Is
Yeah, so what that
that
is,
where that is?
that had to do with the ice plant. So the money that was brought in from that has to show the auditors want it to come through our books. So it's an in and out entry, so it's not, doesn't have anything to do with the municipality, but it has to be accounted for.
Thank you. Now, veterinary services, what's being provided for that?
For the vet services?
Yeah,
Well, just to keep the vets around more than anything else. So we get a per capita charge for the vet services.
oh, okay, so this is like a thing that every municipality
Every
pays
municipality
to the
has
veterinary
around here.
warranty.
Yes.
Okay, because that is going to go, it went up higher than what we expected, so is it like a licensing fee kind of thing?
No, yeah, I think they built a new building or they went to a new building. I just have to remember that exactly how that
I
works.
would have to go back and see.
Councillor Jones is the one that sits on that board, and he would have that answer probably more so than I would, but I believe there was some added features to the vet, and they also got a new vet.
And it is done on an agreement with the Vet Services Board. I know that council had been asked last year, and I believe it was by Councillor Jones, whether or not they would consider upping the amount that was paid to veterinary services. And in looking back at what their agreement was, it was required that we stay with what their agreement was, other than if there was a specific charge that needed to be done.
So that's something across the board for everyone.
Yes.
Animal and pest control, is that amount for 2,378.96, is that regard to like beavers being removed, or what is that for? What kind of pests are we talking about, or animals?
There are actually two areas where animal and pest control show up in our documents. One is for beaver control, and the other is actual animal control that we contract out through the animal control officer. And that would be for retrieval and whatnot of dogs that are captured running loose on the highway injured.
Okay, is that not gathered, like, are there charges laid against the owner of that animal to compensate, to bring that money back to our community?
There is, if it is known who the animal belongs to, if it happens to be a stray on the highway and there's concerns that it could cause an accident, then it's municipality opposite.
Yeah, because so far we've only got $105 back in the control fines.
Yeah, there's not a lot that get charged back.
Okay, storm sewer, $6,000 used, 2,754 this year, 17,500 next year, 17,000. Is this coming off of levies for the town of Wawanesa property owners, or is this coming out of a general or reserve fund?
It comes on the
Yeah.
comes up transportation.
Transportation.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other question I have is the federal gas tax budget. Looking at it was 100,500. Actual was 16,800 this year, 101,833. Now, if there's the cancellation of the carbon tax, will this affect the federal gas tax for our community? Like, what is the plan should this happen? Because we rely on that money.
Well, we don't rely on the money actually, because we don't know whether we're gonna get it every year.
Okay.
We have to basically apply for it. So we don't count on it.
Okay, so it's not relied upon.
No.
Now, when the document says borne by reserves, I just need clarification. I'm a layman, so I just want to know what that means. Reserves are contributed to by the taxpayer through relative assessments. So does this mean that the rule, or maybe it's contributing to towns projects, or how does that work? What does it mean by borne by
So
reserves?
all tax money goes into general revenue. So the general revenue that goes into, when we do the financial plan, there'll be money goes from the general revenue, or on the revenue side, will go into reserves. It could be for equipment, it could be a general reserve, it could be any number of reserves, and it goes into that. And then you draw it out as you need it. Like for the equipment, we buy a grader, we pull it out at the same time.
So when you draw it out, is there a process of people being made, the taxpayer being aware
It's right here.
ahead of time?
Right, so you look at the fiscal services, that's when we're drawing it out a lot of times to pay for a grader or whatever the case may be.
Now, will legal costs continue to go up with the infighting? I guess that is a big concern because we're looking at the amount of the legal costs that are still out and also recorded. I think it's 33,000 for the coming year as well. Are we anticipating more infighting, or are we done with that we can actually look at that money being used for something else?
That, we never know. We never know what's gonna happen. I mean, there's all kinds of situations occur. We don't want them to occur, but they will.
Okay, so I guess that's where my question comes in, that, as a community and trying to work hard to keep taxes down as much as possible, especially when we look at the economy right now with what's happening and how we're going to mobilize and how we're going to support people through this process. I guess my question comes up is, how are we going to manage the dollars? And like, are you going to be able to cut something if we get into a real bad way? I mean, taxes are going to start to move, the tariff taxes, all of that. So if you need equipment, if you budgeted for 15,000, it might cost you 40,000 now. So how are you going to balance that budget then?
So this is what we plan. First of all, I will mention this, there's no infighting going on in this council. And I don't know that the comments as far as the quality of what you're referring to, but in any case, there's no infighting here. As far as what we do is, it's one of the reasons why we have an increase this year in taxes. Basically because we want to make sure that we put enough money away. We have a 10-year plan, and we look through and we say, we'll replace a grader in this year, and then 2 years later, we'll replace another grader, replace a Schulting mower, and we'll replace a tractor. So we have it there, and it's the administration is putting it forward so that we have enough in the bank at that time when those come due. We don't know, you're right, with this, now these tariffs, are our grader costs going to go up? They have gone up. We know it's going to happen, but we're planning ahead all the time, and that's why we'd rather do 3% and 4% a year than wait for Brandon and do 12% and 14%.
And I guess that's where it also comes in, the social assistance aspect might come into play as well for many, because we may have families in dire straits. That's a probability should this continue this momentum.
Right.
So I guess my biggest concern is that we can't manage a budget to cover everything.
No.
Where are we going to be left at? And is that where they start looking at regionalization versus council?
Yeah, and I think it's up to each individual municipality. Just as I said, you look at the city of Brandon with their increase, I think it's 11% this year, the taxation. Winnipeg's going to go a lot more. The sound of things, it's going to be, I think they've emptied their war chest or whatever that they had. We've been putting some money away into general reserve so that we have these little areas we can say, okay, draw out of there. So it's a guess, because we don't know what's going to come up at the end of this year or next year.
And I think too that our taxes have evolved, and always we've had an increment. Whereas when you refer to Brandon taxation, they had years where they didn't have an increase. So yeah, they got hit with a big blow. For us, we're just conscientious of this. If we can cut corners or do whatever we need to, especially in this day and age now that we're looking at. I guess that's my family's concern. So that's all that I have.
Thank you.
Willis Hunter, 35,819. I understand there's funding in this budget somewhere for doctor's office. Is that right? And how much is it? Where is it located? Can you give us some details,
That
please?
will be in the grants.
Yeah, under general government.
What page is that? It would have been nice to have had a copy of the presentation like we've had other years, so we could follow along and see what the increases were, et cetera. We didn't get anything this year. We've had that before.
Okay.
So I'm gonna ask some questions because I don't have any.
And that's what we're here for. Now, that was, I think the number is at 10,000 for this year.
Yes.
For that.
Okay, and where is that doctor's office located?
It's in Glenboro.
So what does that do for Oakland-Wawanesa funding a doctor's office in Glenboro, which is umpteen miles away from where I live?
Right.
So who's it gonna benefit?
There's usage from residents around here, whether it be in rural or in town. So there is some usage of the doctor's services and the emergency in Glenboro. So this is where that stems from.
Okay, and how many new patients does he take?
We don't ask them how many patients they have.
Yeah, you have to ask that question. How many new patients is it gonna take? Because if he's gonna look after Oakland-Wawanesa, you gotta have people looked after. You cannot get a doctor in a clinic in Brandon. So how many people are gonna go to Glenboro? And how many people are gonna be turned away? And how many taxpayers from the Oakland and Wawanesa are paying for a doctor's office? And why are we paying for a doctor's office?
Yeah.
Nobody else pays. What other RNs pay for doctor's
Well,
offices?
Glenboro is doing an awful piles of financial. I mean, you look at throughout Milletta, all these other areas, they're putting money to attract doctors and nurses. So there's all these different funds are going in. We had quite a discussion on that as council as to what's happening with the medical. It really is the provincial government's responsibility, but nowadays we can't get doctors and nurses into the rural, so there's constant funding going out from the municipalities to try to attract doctors and nurses. And this is one way to do it. Glenboro's of the opinion, when they put this clinic they're going to build, is that in order to attract doctors and nurses and keep doctors, they're going to have this facility because they're not going to go to the facility they're in.
Well, I think if you were looking at an office in Wawanesa, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But for me to go umpteen more miles down the road to Glenboro, and you're wasting my tax dollars on that, I don't think it's fair.
Okay.
And recreation levy, how much was the increase in that this year? The revenue, what was the percentage increase in, from last year to this year?
I think the overall recreation levy was up 2%.
Should be 2% according to the special levy.
Okay, so can you give us a breakdown of the revenue collected? What's proposed to be spent this year? Like, what's the proposed revenue for this year and the proposed expenses
Revenue for the recreation facility.
for recreation? Yeah,
For rec.
like, is it
We don't have
this
that.
100, pardon me?
We don't follow that.
You don't what?
We don't follow what their expenses are and their revenue.
Or was this 116,000 for?
That is the grant for them. Well, that's the total, I believe, 116,000 is recreation. In recreation, you have 4,000 some, I think 4,300 for each hall in Carroll and in Nesbit and in Wawanesa. And then there is money for the soccer field.
So-
Soccer field comes into that.
So we have to increase, but we're not increasing our grants to these halls or anything, like? We have an
We've
increase
increased
of
them before.
$3,000?
Right.
And what's our percentage increase? How much money?
It's 2%.
2%? 2% of that 100,000, which is,
So from what they had received in previous years, it goes up
It goes up
2%
2% every
annually
year.
over the next 5 years.
each one, each line.
So why don't you have to keep track of the money that comes in and the
These
money
are
that's
grants. These are
expended? What's the
grants.
bylaws say?
But this is the grants to the Service River Act. Well, for their portion. But it also goes, as I say, we have money that goes to the halls and it goes to the recreation. Carroll has their rink there that has some funding to it. So we don't ask them how much money they make or et cetera. We don't ask the halls how much money they make as to.
I'm not asking that. I'm saying, how much money does the RM bring in and how much do they distribute for recreation?
The
Like,
recreation.
how much is our recreation revenue and how much is our recreation expenses?
We don't have recreation revenue in the municipality.
Well, you have a recreation levy, so you have tax money, so how much is it?
That the revenue, what that tax levy is, goes to the grant. It pays out in grants. So there's what's the total amount? $116,000 goes out every year as an expense only. There's no revenue tied to that.
And you don't go back to anybody and ask them what their revenue is to see if they need the money?
They always need money.
Well, I think we heard differently about that, about your hockey rink in town a few years ago.
Anyhow,
Okay.
Gordon Smith, Northwest 85, what is it there?
Northwest. I don't, Lake Michigan.
Anyhow. So if it's 116,000 going towards rec, and what is it? Each hall gets $3,000?
$4,300 and some dollars.
So there's basically 108,000 going to Wawanesa rec then? That we should have a breakdown to who's getting what for everything, because it seems to be really,
What's the breakdown?
Of each place?
Yes, because you had it, we had it on that.
and then on top of that, you also have basically a levy against the halls, which grabs back the 4,300 or however much they're grabbing back. So that levy is kind of a grab back against what you're granting them.
Right.
Shouldn't we kind of be eliminating the levies on the halls and stuff?
No, the amount that is drawn back from the special levies, et cetera, that we accounted for that about a couple of years ago. We increased the amount so that it be covered up when we had those special levies brought in.
So every time the special levy goes up, their grant money goes up as well, Mike?
That's right. 2%. So it's broken down. We had it.
Yeah,
this
I
morning.
did. So swimming pools and beaches is just over 5,200. The water park is just over 38,000. The campground is 11,600. Baseball is only about $795. Community centers and halls is 13,295. Water to facilities is just over 5,500. Skating rinks and arenas, there are two separate amounts. One is 1,100 and one is 39,000 for a total of 116,070.
So
And
who
then
gets the 39,000?
39,000
And
would
it's
be to
rec.
the Souris River Rec for the rink here.
Okay.
And then there's $500 that is to museums.
And the 38,000 for the water park
That is
in
through,
Thuris, or where is that?
no, that is through Souris River Rec.
So $38,000 for a water park, that seems to be extremely steep.
Cost to operate.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Dennis Road, Northeast 26,718. I find it strange that as a municipality, we don't have an accounting from the SRRC. I know from talking with the CAO that they do supply a financial statement to the municipality. So there's really no reason why there can't be some accounting through this meeting as to what the income is and what their expenses are. I mean, financial statement would tell you that, and that could be relayed to the public at this meeting. I think that's in fact a requirement for any entity that gets a grant from the municipality, is it not? That they give either a financial statement or some accounting of what they're going to use the money for. That used to be part of the requirement.
Maybe as a policy, but it's not a requirement.
But a question to the CEO, we do get a financial statement from
We do.
First River Rec.
We do, and our auditor comments on that when he does his presentation for our auditing.
But you're not prepared to share that with the public.
That isn't my document to share, that's Service River Rec's document.
That is our tax money that goes to them for those purposes, so it should be shareable.
Under a grant.
And you can certainly request it through Service River Rec. The document is.
I have done, and I've never got a reply back.
Okay.
Anything further? Yes.
I have a question. I was just wondering, I live on Lake Clementi Road. For the handy transit or whatever, like, how does that work? Now, like, let's just say I wanted to use it, like,
Yes.
for whatever, a ride to the hospital or something. Like, I don't know how that works. I mean, I've heard different stories, so I thought I'm gonna ask.
So the person that looks after it is Dale Seafoot out of Nesbit. You would give him a call and he would arrange the setup for it, but it's a charge every time when it's used, there's a mileage charge and a driver charge. So it doesn't matter who uses it, anybody can use it. If you wanted to, as an example, we looked at it initially to take it, a group of us to the airport in Winnipeg, and it would be, I forget what the charge was per mile, and then there's a driver charge. It's significant amount of money, so it was too much for us to use. But that's available to anybody within the municipality. You have to call Dale Seafoot, and Dale would organize it as to what you want to do. It could be just to go to a stag, if you want to do it. It's or shopping. A lot of it is shopping. It's shopping trips to Brandon, and they'll take it, and everybody pays so much money for the mileage, whoever goes. And then that's part of the revenue.
So basically you wouldn't want to just use it yourself, like you want, it has to be, you want to kind of fill it up, right?
If need for cost purposes, I would suggest that's probably right.
I'm the chairman of
Yeah.
the handy van, and which we got lucky, we got two grants, we bought two brand new vans, 15 passenger, there's one in Glenboro situated, one here, and we have a Dodge minivan that's wheelchair accessible. So let's say we have to take somebody in a wheelchair to Boundary Trails or Winnipeg, we take the small van wherever we can, and it'll go. And actually, we have our meeting tomorrow, but our ridership at our last meeting, the one for rural Oakland and Wawanesa had more ridership than the one in Woonville for that 6 months. But you gotta remember, our vans did not pass safety, so we went 6 months without vans, but it was amazing that our ridership was that high. But lots of people will take it to shopping trip to Brandon or hospital appointments.
We did have a situation where the ambulance service or paramedics had to use it to transfer patient.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
you have to be an approved driver too. You've got to be approved by the board. And I'm sorry to say I'm one of them, but, and I have taken a lot of trips. I've gone touring, cemeteries. I've gone touring local towns, old school sites. Some seniors just want to get out and breathe some fresh air out of the personal care home. They go gambling, they go shopping, and it is more economical if you have a group. So a lot more. So when we go to the casino by Carberry, there's a busload goes. And I think it costs them $12 a person or something like that. And pays for the driver plus the mileage.
Okay, But if you live rural.
Yeah,
Like,
I live rural.
well, I'm just saying, anywhere in the municipality, do they actually come and pick you up?
Yeah, they will, yeah.
That's kind of what I wanted to know.
And
So,
Craig Vince, who lives, close to number 10, he's one of our main drivers, so he comes here, gets a van and takes and picks wherever it might be.
I guess kind of just, I mean, I know you can't give numbers, but what I'm wanting to know is, really, would it be cheaper for somebody rural? Okay, like say I live on Lake Clemente Road, as myself as an example. Would it be more feasible for me, say I had to get to the hospital for some appointment or surgery, whatever, to use that? Or would it be cheaper to, say, call a cab company? Like, I'm just trying to figure out, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so if you give Dale Sheeper a call, he would be able to give you
Answer that.
the numbers
Okay.
of what it would be exactly, so that there's no guessing involved, and that would be a kind of where to go to.
Okay.
And people have taken them if you have somebody in a wheelchair or disabled and they're going to a family reunion with Neequa, we've had them all over where they'll take, and one of our drivers goes with them, so it get utilized lots for that and so on.
Okay,
One of the things they're trying to do to subsidize the operation of the anti-ban is they're trying to get more drivers and get even sports teams or something to use than paid ridership, so. And it could be Brandon Hills, it could be the Valley Girls from Wawanesa, and they're not Wawanesa people either, so. And it just, they want it used more regular because we don't have an ambulance here anymore. And I have picked up 2 patients in Glenboro and brought them back after long-term care to the personal care home in Wawanesa. And that is paid for by Manitoba Health. So
okay. Well, I was just asking just because, if you have a bit of a stay in a hospital or something like that, and you obviously just want to leave your vehicle at home. And yeah, that's what
well, some people are picked up by ambulances, taken to
Right.
another hospital. And they come home and they're healthy and they haven't got a family member or whatever to bring them home. That is a subsidized transportation, so.
Well, I'll call that, did you say his last name is Seafoot?
KLC lives in Nesbit.
Okay.
He's on the website.
And there's a fee schedule for that, which like Dave said, he'll get that for you, so you know before you go what it might be.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody? Okay, nothing else? Whereas all representatives in regard to the 2025 financial plan have been dealt with, therefore be resolved that the public hearing be concluded. Resume this normal order of business. When we do that, Councillor Fisher, second, Councillor Hatch, all in favor?
In favor.
Okay, adoption of the plan. Be it resolved that the 2025 financial plan as set out in the form approved by the Minister of Municipal and Northern Relations be adopted. Would you please move that? Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Hatch, all in favor?
In favor.
Bylaw number 45-2025, be it resolved that bylaw number 45-2025, being the 2025 tax levy bylaw, be read a first time. Would you move that, please? Councillor Fisher, seconder. Councillor Hatch. No discussion on our first reading. All in favor?
In favor.
Be resolved that this meeting is now adjourned. Moved by Councillor McDonald, seconder. Councillor Hatch, all in favor?
In favor.